I was kicked out of my house after my brother's girlfriend died. Chapter 1. After my brother's girlfriend died, he put all the blame on me, thinking that it was because of my secret crush on him that everything happened. In his eyes, all the sins seemed to come from me. So he decided to send me abroad to learn the rules. I was powerless to resist and could only beg him to let me go, but he showed no sign of turning back. He will never know that the so-called learning the rules, for me, is the torture and humiliation of countless men. The pain that I cannot escape swallowed up my hope bit by bit, and gradually, all the light disappeared. For 5 years, I was forced to become a plaything of the Heaven on Earth nightclub. Every greasy guest was my nightmare, and their touch made me feel endless humiliation. I had no ability to resist. Only tears silently slid over, soaking the pillow, and gradually invading the depths of my heart. 5 years have passed, and I have become accustomed to this humiliation. I have long been numb to the torture, and emptiness and despair fill my every day. I remember 5 years ago, I still had hope, expecting my brother to come and take me home. But 5 years have passed, and he has completely forgotten me. In the past, my brother loved me so much, cared about me so much, and was afraid that I would suffer any injustice. But now, 5 years have passed, and he has done nothing. Is he really so cruel to me? I still can't understand it, and my heart is full of endless questions. The manager of the nightclub looked at me and sneered. "Don't be silly. Even if your brother comes to pick you up, you will never be the same again." His ridicule pierced my heart like a needle, and I knew he was right. This place is no longer suitable for me, a princess from a wealthy family. 5 years of torture have changed me. I am no longer the spoiled little girl, but a thing at the mercy of others. My body has long been tainted by the touch of countless men. However, even so, I still held on to a glimmer of hope, looking forward to my brother's arrival. He would definitely come to take me home. However, time passed, and my brother never showed up. I was completely forgotten, like a discarded toy. No one remembered me anymore. Until today, my sister finally appeared in front of me. With contempt and complacency, she sneered and said, "Sister, I haven't seen you for 5 years, but you are becoming more and more attractive." Her words are like a knife, piercing my heart fiercely. I didn't dare to look up or look at her, because I know that I am no longer the sister that my brother loves so much. 5 years of torture have made me unrecognizable, and my soul has been eroded by endless torture. I can no longer recognize myself, but she sneered at me as if I were a stranger. At that moment, I finally understood that the past could never be returned. My brother was no longer the brother who cared about me, and I was no longer qualified to mention him. My sister took me out of the car and drove to the airport. In the car, I kept my head down and didn't dare to look up at her. The outside world was familiar and strange to me, like a distant dream. She seemed to be sizing me up, and her tone was provocative. "Don't you really want to know why your brother suddenly wants to take you home?" I nodded, then quickly shook my head. No matter what she said, I no longer dared to have any illusions about my brother. 5 years had swallowed me away from my happy family, and I was no longer qualified to go back. I was left with a broken self that I could no longer recognize. I knew that my brother, who was once the most important person in my life, would never appear in my world again. Chapter 2. 5 years ago, on the eve of my brother and sister-in-law's wedding, my sister-in-law and Maria were out together when they had a car accident, and my sister-in-law died on the spot. Maria told her brother that it was me who asked my sister-in-law to go out in the rain to buy snowy bread, saying that I called to ask for it. Although I tried my best to explain, my brother would not listen and angrily slapped me several times with resentment in his eyes. "Did you know that my sister-in-law is pregnant?" my brother roared. "You killed my wife and my unborn child." At that moment, I almost suffocated. My brother's anger was like a knife, completely isolating me. I grabbed Maria's collar and asked in a trembling voice, "Why did you do this? What did I do wrong?" But my brother's anger came over me like a tide. He angrily accused me and even called me a shameless bitch. He said that I had a crush on him and was jealous of my sister-in-law. So I deliberately let her go out in the rain to buy bread, which eventually killed her. These words pierced my heart like a knife. 3 years ago, my brother found my diary and mistakenly thought that I had a crush on him. All my feelings were misunderstood by him and turned into crimes. The truth about my sister-in-law's death in a car accident had nothing to do with me, but my brother didn't want to listen to my explanation at all and eventually kicked me out of the house. I fell on my knees and begged him not to drive me away, but he pushed me away coldly and walked away. At that moment, I knew that was the last time we saw each other 5 years ago. 5 years later, Maria took me home and told me coldly, "Next month your brother will inherit Grandpa's company and officially become the chairman. He wants the whole family to attend." It turned out that my brother didn't take me home because he remembered me, but for a hypocritical family gathering. Maria came close to me, squeezed my arm, and warned in a low voice, "Jessica, remember what you have been through in the past 5 years. It is best not to mention it when you go back." She continued to mock me. "After all, you have been in that kind of place for 5 years. It is not glorious to talk about it." I was speechless and my heart was in pain. Maria continued to ask, "Did you really call your sister-in-law that day?" For 5 years, Maria and the people in the nightclub kept asking me that question. At first, I firmly denied it, but after countless beatings and torture, I finally gave in. I nodded desperately and admitted weakly, "I was the one who made the call. I killed my sister-in-law." Maria smiled with satisfaction, but she still didn't let me go. "You better not play tricks. Don't forget those videos. I have a way to let my brother know." I was terrified and nodded desperately. My heart was filled with despair. After the plane landed, I just walked out of the cabin and heard Maria's sweet voice calling my brother's name. I was stunned, then lowered my head, and my body involuntarily tensed up. Maria pinched me hard on my back, and I was led like a puppet. Even 5 years later, the disgust in my brother's eyes still filled me with fear. I was afraid that if I didn't behave well, my brother would send me back to that nightmare again. As the black leather shoes approached, my breathing became more rapid and my heartbeat almost jumped out of my chest. Suddenly, a familiar command sounded, "Raise your head." The voice was like a heavy hammer, hitting my heart. I forced myself to look up, and the moment my eyes met my brother's, my face turned pale. My brother's brows were furrowed. His face was full of displeasure, and I completely collapsed in front of him. Shame surged into my heart like a tide. My body suddenly relaxed, and tears instantly flowed out. I felt like I couldn't handle the shame, and all of a sudden, I peed my pants. The shame was overwhelming my world, and I couldn't face what was happening. Chapter 3. I felt my body trembling, and deep fear surged like a tide, almost making me unable to move. Every second of waiting was like a step on the edge of a cliff. I was afraid of being taken back to that place again, the place that made me unable to breathe. Suddenly, my brother's voice broke the silence. "Get in the car." I hurriedly opened the car door and sat in the back seat, not even daring to raise my head. My heart was beating very fast. Maria turned around and asked me why I didn't sit in the passenger seat. I was speechless for a moment. The panic in my heart made me unable to say anything. My brother's voice was filled with indifference. His cold tone cut through the air like a knife. "Are you deaf?" I didn't dare to look up at him. I could only lower my head and endure in silence. His words made me realize that I had angered him again. In order to avoid further arguments, I quickly knelt down and apologized in a low voice. Just then, Maria frowned and covered her nose. "What's that smell?" She turned to me with a dagger-like look. My heart skipped a beat. Did she smell it? I was so nervous that my breathing became rapid. "I'm sorry, I made the seat dirty. I'll clean it up," I hurriedly explained in a low voice, fearing that she would be even more disgusted. However, my brother was like a cold statue, his eyes sharper. "Jessica, you're going to learn the rules, not to get dirty," he ordered impatiently. "Get out of the car." My heart sank suddenly. This voice, this look was like a sharp sword piercing my heart. He didn't want me to stay in the car. I was no longer his sister, but just a burden. I lowered my head and tumbled out of the car. "Come back after you've cleaned up the mess yourself." He said this and drove away mercilessly. I stood in the rain, watching the tiny raindrops begin to wet my clothes. I felt lost, as if everything was over. I had lived here for more than 10 years, and it was a place I once felt warm. But now, everything has changed. My brother is no longer the person I can rely on. He used to love me, even better than his own sister. However, a car accident changed everything. For 5 years, he never looked at me again. I still remember that I was imprisoned in a nightclub and secretly called my brother for help, but he responded coldly, "Learn the rules and come back when you are good." 5 years later, I learned how to be a good boy, but I still didn't get his acceptance. I lost my home, everything I had, and all that was left was endless loneliness. "What are you doing? You've learned so poorly in 5 years." My brother saw my wet clothes, and his angry tone almost made me breathless. "Cleaning it up for me. I asked you to do it for 3 days, and what happened?" His voice was like an icy wind, and my heart was broken. I stood there, shaking, eyes filled with silent pain, afraid of his rage, which made me feel insignificant. Suddenly, I fell to my knees, tears streaming down my face. Brother, I was wrong. Please forgive me. I really didn't mean it. My voice trembled, and my heart was filled with despair. The policeman looked at me and seemed to want to help me up, but I pushed his hand away. Don't touch me. Please don't touch me. I struggled, full of fear. When my brother saw this scene, he became even angrier. Jessica, it's shame that even the police were alarmed. His tone became colder and colder, and the anger on his face made me dare not look directly at him. He turned and walked into the house. My heart was beating wildly as I hurried to follow him. Every step I took felt like I was stepping on a coffin, filled with unspeakable fear. When I walked into the home that was once full of memories, everything in front of me froze me. The wall in the living room that was once filled with photos of our family now only has photos of Maria and her brother. The French furniture that I once loved has been replaced with the Japanese style that she likes. My room has disappeared, replaced by her dressing room. My heart almost collapsed at that moment. Everything that once belonged to me no longer belonged to me. I stood in that empty space, my mind was blank. Sister, welcome home. Maria came closer and took my hand. Her smile became distorted in my eyes, and a wave of nausea surged in my heart. The fear made me almost breathless. I pushed her hand away violently, my heart filled with disgust for her. She staggered, her face pale, and my brother's expression instantly became cold and ruthless. All these years of learning are in vain. You are still so bad. I had no way to escape from my brother's anger. I suddenly knelt down, put my head in my hands, and apologized painfully. I'm sorry, Maria. I didn't mean it. I'm sorry, brother. Please don't send me back. I started to kowtow frantically, and the floor was soon stained with blood. I couldn't stand his eyes. I couldn't bear it. Jessica, look at what you look like now. My brother's roar exploded like thunder, destroying my remaining sanity. Mother Wong walked over and tried to help me up, but I screamed frantically, don't touch me, don't touch me. I curled up in the corner and felt myself getting wet again. Suddenly, I felt a pool of water flowing out from under me. The wet feeling made me even more ashamed. Maria covered her mouth and nose. Brother, she seems to have peed. Hearing this, the brother's anger reached its peak. Jessica, you are crazy. Do I need to send you back before you can wake up? This sentence was like a sharp knife, piercing my heart deeply. My eyes went dark, and all my hopes were shattered in an instant. I lost consciousness and fell into the abyss of darkness. Chapter 4. I woke up from my coma and opened my eyes to find that the room was empty. My body felt numb, and I sat up with a start, only to find that my clothes had been changed. My heart sank suddenly, and panic surged in my heart. I looked down at the scars on my body and was stunned. What should I do? At this moment, I stood up in a panic and tried to get out of bed, but because of my weakness, I stumbled and fell to the ground. Just then, Aunt Wong came in and saw me fall. She hurried forward to help me up. Seeing my embarrassment, her eyes were full of heartache. Miss, are you okay? You saw it, right? I asked, my voice trembling. Aunt Wong's tears fell instantly. She choked, her tone full of pity. Miss, what did those people do to you? Auntie Wong, please, keep this a secret from me. Don't tell anyone. I begged. Auntie Wong agreed, and I was relieved. But my brother's furious face appeared in my mind, and the fear in my heart surged up again. I couldn't help but tremble, and tears burst out again. What should I do, Aunt Wong? My brother's going to send me back again. I almost cried out, I'm dead. I beat my head, my heart filled with regret and helplessness. Seeing this, Aunt Wong hugged me distressfully and said, Don't be afraid, Mississippi. It's okay. No one will send you back. She comforted me softly. Go take a bath and relax. You are too anxious. I nodded and followed Wong Ma into the bathroom. She prepared the bath water for me and wanted to help me, but I hurriedly stopped her. I didn't want her to see those shocking scars on my body again. I soaked in the water, which was slightly warmer, but it stung the unhealed wounds on my body. I couldn't help but curl up, feeling the sharp pain brought by the warm water, but also enjoying the warmth I had never experienced before. This warmth in the past 5 years, I could only wash my body with ice-cold water. At night, Maria suddenly came into my room and told me coldly, Brother asked you to go downstairs for dinner. Her words were threatening. I warn you, Jessica, if you continue to be so timid, Brother will find out, and I will not forgive you then. I was not afraid of her, but of my brother's frightening anger. But I knew Maria's viciousness, so I took the courage to go downstairs. The dining table was filled with fragrant aromas and was filled with sumptuous dishes. I was stunned as I watched the two of them sitting together happily. It has been a long time since I sat at the table to eat. In the past, I only ate on the floor with the dog. Hurry up and sit down. Wait for someone to invite you, my brother said coldly. Hearing this, I hurriedly sat down and quickly picked up the chopsticks to eat, fearing that I would upset him again. While I was eating, my brother suddenly gave me a piece of braised pork. I subconsciously moved the bowl away, and the piece of meat fell on the table. I was so flustered that my heart beat faster and I didn't know what to do. My brother and Maria were both stunned, but my brother's hand was still holding the food, and he didn't take it back immediately. At that moment, my heart almost jumped out of my chest, and all my thoughts suddenly came to my mind. Those terrible memories flashed through my mind. The look in the eyes of the nightclub owner, who always appeared as a brother, and made me fall into an inextricable fear. Sometimes he became a brother, and suddenly he turned back into his cold self. I remember one time, he poured me some water, and I just drank it subconsciously, and he slapped me hard several times, calling me shameless. That kind of torture has been deeply imprinted in my heart. I'm sorry, I was distracted. I'll eat right away. I hurriedly explained, grabbing the braised pork and stuffing it into my mouth. My brother didn't say anything else, but I could feel his unhappy eyes, and there was a hint of indifference in his silence. I hurriedly finished my meal, my heart full of repressed emotions, and quickly returned to my room. Chapter 5. Late at night, a knock on the door broke the silence. I held my breath, my heartbeat quickened, and asked hurriedly, "Who is it?" My brother's voice came from outside the door. "It's me." My heart tightened. My brother must have something to ask me at this time. His appearance made me feel inexplicably terrified. At this moment, I couldn't face him. The door was only a crack open, and I asked cautiously, "Brother, what's wrong?" His eyes were deep and serious, making me feel uneasy. "I want to ask you something." At that moment, my heart completely sank and fear surged in my heart. I couldn't let him discover my secret, and I absolutely couldn't let him see my vulnerable side. "I asked you what this is." He opened his hand, and the medicine bottle was in his hand. My heart skipped a beat, and the whole world seemed to stop for a moment. "This fell out of the coat you just dropped." "What medicine?" His eyes locked onto me, and his strong suspicion sent a chill down my spine. I quickly denied it. "It's not mine, I don't know." My brother didn't believe me, and my silence made him even angrier. He grabbed me and wanted to take me to the hospital. I struggled desperately, but eventually pushed my brother away and locked the door. I collapsed at the door, panting, my heart filled with despair. I couldn't let him know that I was depressed. Otherwise, he would see the scars on my body, and he would know the secret that I had nothing. Outside the door, I heard my brother and Maria talking. I covered my ears and trembled. Suddenly, the dream came again. I dreamed of my mother. She was holding my hand, smiling gently, her eyes full of love. She smiled and asked me, "Jessica, why are you so thin? Is it because your brother didn't feed you well?" Tears welled up in my eyes, and I couldn't help but hug my mother and burst into tears. "Mom, I miss you so much. I'm so tired." Mom wanted to say something, but was interrupted by a sudden tug. I opened my eyes suddenly, and my brother and Maria stood there in front of me, expressionless. My brother looked at me coldly, his tone filled with anger. "What on earth have you done? Have you fallen into depravity?" He threw a report in front of me. The report clearly stated drug component analysis, and one of the labels was abortion pills. My mind went blank, I couldn't understand, and the whole world collapsed at this moment. "You disgusting girl, you have fallen to the lowest point." My brother's tone made my heart completely collapse. Tears welled up in my eyes, and I shook my head to defend myself. "Brother, this is not my medicine." But my brother didn't have a single glimmer of pity in his eyes. He didn't listen to my explanation and threw me into the basement. The basement was dark, damp, and the cold air made me feel extremely lonely and desperate. The pain spread through my body, and I curled up in a corner, but my mind couldn't help but recall the past. Once upon a time, my brother was so gentle and cared for me like a treasure, as if this home was a paradise for the two of us. Everyone envied me for having a good brother, and I always thought that I would be happy like this forever. Until my sister-in-law brought me home, my brother's gentleness began to change, and my heart also changed quietly. I thought he would alienate me, But gradually I found that it was not because of fear, but because I fell in love with him. We are not related by blood, but we have this unspoken love. I began to like him secretly and buried this feeling deep in my heart. Countless silent nights, I would secretly write down his name and smile foolishly. Everything was originally just my secret. Until that day, after my brother's graduate school graduation ceremony, he suddenly hugged me and kissed me because of the cake I made. At that moment, I was terrified, afraid that he would discover the secret in my heart. At this moment, Maria came in with her sister-in-law. My drawers were opened, and the diaries and medicines inside were exposed one by one. I had nowhere to escape and no way to defend myself. My brother's angry words cut through my heart like a knife. "You are disgusting." From then on, I knew that I would no longer be the sister in his eyes. After my sister-in-law got into a car accident, I became a sinner in everyone's eyes. That unspeakable pain will always be engraved in my heart. Chapter 6. I woke up from the cold, my whole body aching. I struggled to get up, and it was quiet all around. I called out for a long time, but no one responded. Suddenly, I realized that I might starve to death here. Just then, my brother appeared, with a gloomy expression on his face. He glanced at the blood on the ground, squatted down, and nervously grabbed my hand. "How did you get hurt?" he asked, his voice a little panicked. I looked down and realized that my fingers were bleeding. He brought the medical kit to treat my wound. My body was stiff, and I dare not move. Seeing his cold face, I felt powerless. I only remember that when I was a child, he always coaxed me gently. "You used to scream when you were pricked by a needle, and I had to comfort you to stop crying." My brother suddenly spoke, with a hint of memories in his eyes. "Yes, I used to be very delicate and afraid of the slightest pain. But now I have long lost those former weaknesses." I whispered, "I'm not hurt." But I knew deep down that I was no longer the little princess who depended on him. All those years in a nightclub had worn away all my fragility. Suddenly, a strange noise came from the closet. I jumped in fright, thinking it was a mouse. But the noise got louder and louder, and my brother became alert. "Who is it?" he asked coldly. He opened the closet and found a bad man hiding in it. My heart sank instantly, and I was so shocked that I couldn't speak. My brother's face became more gloomy, and he pushed the man to the ground and asked him harshly. The man struggled to explain. "I'm not a thief. I'm here to find Jessica." He turned his head and looked at me, shouting, "Jessica, save me. Let him go." I looked at him in disbelief and shook my head. "I don't know you at all. How could I possibly know this man hiding in the closet?" The man was still talking without thinking. "Jessica, you just said to me." I quickly interrupted. "Don't say it, I didn't." My tears welled up, and I felt powerless. My brother's face became even more livid, and he pushed me down on the bed and said angrily, "You can't live without a man, right? Why are you so cheap?" He threw the man out and returned to my room coldly. I thought there would be a longer punishment, but unexpectedly, my brother came back soon. He looked at me, a complex emotion flashed in his eyes, and then he suddenly pushed me down on the bed, and his figure quickly pressed down. I pushed him away in fear, and tears overflowed in an instant. He chuckled. "Why, don't you like me?" His voice was as cold as ice. "Didn't you say you couldn't live without a man? Then I will satisfy you." One hand grabbed my neck, pinning me to the bed, and the other hand began to unbutton my clothes. My heart almost stopped beating. The brother in front of me was no longer the gentle brother I was familiar with. "No, don't do this to me," I cried, tears in my eyes like a flood. He didn't stop, but held me down even harder until I tried to struggle to escape, but he grabbed my ankle and pulled me back under him again. "Do you hate me?" I stared at him, filled with anger and confusion. There was a hint of doubt in his eyes. "That's not what you said in your diary. You said you dreamed of me." I was stunned. My mind was blank. It turned out that my feelings were just a tool for him to insult me. The brother I once had a crush on was no longer the gentle brother he used to be. "Brother, please let me die. Death will put an end to everything." I begged in a low voice, my voice choking with sobs. I was exhausted, and my heart was filled with endless despair and numbness. I closed my eyes tightly, letting him tear my soul apart like a wild animal. But at the moment when my clothes were completely torn, his movements suddenly stopped. When he saw the shocking scars and tattoos with insulting words all over my body, his expression changed completely. How could this happen?" There was fear and disbelief in his voice. "How could this happen?" His hand unconsciously pinched my shoulder. I opened my mouth, but couldn't say a word. I don't know how long I cried. Only his warm embrace comforted me for a moment, but this comfort made me more resistant. Finally, I was tired of crying and gradually fell asleep. Chapter 7. While half asleep and half awake, I heard the conversation between my brother and the doctor. The patient's finger has been seriously injured. This injury has lasted for at least a few years. Now the bone is completely shattered and cannot be restored. I'm afraid that this finger will be permanently disabled. The doctor's words made people feel heavy. In addition, the patient's physical condition is also very poor. All health indicators are not up to standard, obviously due to long-term malnutrition and overwork. Excuse me, what exactly did she go through? Is there any abuse by your family members? My brother's tone was full of doubt. Malnutrition? How is that possible? She's just picky about food occasionally, but it shouldn't be this serious. I know that she must have started a hunger strike on purpose to make me worry, and she also hurt her fingers on purpose. The doctor's tone became serious. These symptoms cannot be faked in a short period of time. The situation is already quite serious. What kind of work did she do? The doctor continued to ask. A trace of surprise flashed in my brother's eyes. The doctor was silent for a moment, then slowly said, "She has been taking many contraindicated drugs for a long time, and the side effects are already very obvious. Did you know that?" "What forbidden drugs?" My brother's voice suddenly rose a few degrees, obviously shocked by the news. The doctor frowned, as if he had not expected that his brother was unaware of the situation. "It's an aphrodisiac." After listening to the doctor's words, my brother said nothing for a long time, and finally called Maria. "Maria, I have something to ask you." At this moment, I fell into a nightmare again. In the dream, those greasy, rough hands were wandering all over my body, and they were verbally insulting me, calling me a bitch and a slut. I struggled and resisted desperately, but was hit violently every time, and even had words carved on my body. The pain was almost unbearable, until a sharp fear woke me up. When I opened my eyes, my brother was sitting beside my bed. Seeing me sweating profusely, he showed a distressed expression, hugged me tightly in his arms, and comforted me softly. At that moment, I felt like I was back in my childhood, when I was awakened by a nightmare and went to look for him while hugging my pillow. He patted my back and whispered, "Don't be afraid, Jessica, you're here. That kind of thing will never happen again." However, I knew that he was the one who caused those 5 years of hellish life. I stared at him blankly, my eyes filled with unspeakable fear, as if I was facing the most terrifying monster. I tried to break free, but he held me tightly. "It's okay, Jessica. It's all over. It's really over." He said these words and held my hand. I saw that my hand was covered with calluses and chilblains. He said a lot to me, but I didn't answer anything. My eyes were empty and I stared straight ahead, as if I had turned into a skeleton. My brother's eyes were wet, and he looked at me with heartache and guilt. "Jessica, can you talk to your brother?" "I'm sorry. My brother didn't expect it to turn out like this. He just thought it was a place to learn rules. In order to make it up to me, my brother decided to take action himself and go abroad to completely destroy the heaven on earth. He had all the people involved arrested one by one, broke up their families, and even broke the legs of all the men and women and sold them to northern Myanmar. He brought several leaders to me. They were covered in scars and looked like they had been tortured. As soon as they saw me, they began to wail and beg me to let them go. My brother held a knife in his hand and carved the words that insulted me on everyone's body. The basement was filled with their screams, and every one of them was chilling. "Jessica, I have brought all these people to you. You can retaliate against them the way they treated you. You can do whatever you want of them, as long as you are happy and feel relieved." I glanced at these people, the manager, the boss, everyone at Staines. Those who once tortured me so much are now kneeling before me and begging for mercy. "We were wrong, really wrong. Please spare our lives." They didn't really realize their mistakes, but were afraid of the horrible fate they would face. "Will you be spared if you beg for mercy?" I sneered and recounted all the atrocities they had done to me. "Does it hurt? It's very uncomfortable, right? But when I begged you to let me go, did you have any sympathy?" After the most brutal punishment, they finally confessed the truth. It turned out that Maria had ordered them to torture me. The brother immediately called Maria to explain, but she said in an extremely hypocritical tone that she did this because her sister-in-law died unjustly and she was venting her anger. "Brother, I know I was wrong and I really regret it. I just asked them to teach my sister a lesson. I didn't really want to hurt her." As she spoke, she pretended to cry bitterly in an attempt to win my forgiveness. I looked at her coldly, my heart full of contempt. Please forgive me. I'm sorry. Her tone was so fake that it made me sick. She actually used my sister-in-law as a tool to deal with me. My brother finally couldn't stand it anymore, so he took back all her bank cards and put her in a detention room so that she could reflect on herself. He asked me again if I had any unpleasant things that needed to be resolved. I said calmly, I want Maria to die. My brother was silent for a long time, and finally said softly, Maria has always been upset about your sister-in-law. But I didn't kill your sister-in-law. I didn't make that phone call to make her eat snowy bread. My brother touched my head and said, Jessica, I've let it go. Let's just leave it at that. Let's turn the page. I will make sure you live a happy life in the future. I felt a chill in my heart. Is this really the case? He would never really believe me, because Maria was his biological sister, and I was just an outsider. I suddenly felt so pathetic. I had once loved him, but now there was only an unhealable wound. Afterwards, my brother treated me very well. It seemed that the brother who loved me the most had returned. He even seemed to have forgotten that he once believed that I was the culprit who killed his wife and children. He treated me twice as well, but I could no longer feel happy. Once, I tried to get him to investigate the truth, but he didn't care at all. When I begged him to take me away, he hung up the phone coldly. Now, why did he suddenly change his attitude? Was it to make myself feel better? Or was it because of guilt and wanted to make it up to me? However, I become what I am now, and all the pain and fear can no longer be easily healed. Chapter 8. The relationship between the three of us was like a power struggle in the palace, complex and subtle. After Maria was ignored by her brother, I welcomed my own spring. Time passed, seemingly calm on the surface, but every moment was filled with hidden waves. That morning, I woke up and found that my brother was not by my bedside, which made me feel uneasy. Curiosity drove me out of the room and unexpectedly met Maria. Her eyes showed contempt, as if she had dropped all her disguises without her brother's protection. Do you think you won? She asked coldly, her tone full of hostility. I fought back without showing any weakness. As long as you are the murderer who killed my sister-in-law, my brother will always bear a grudge against you. I know this sentence is heavy, but it is my true thought. She sneered as if she heard a joke. Are you stupid? How can you blame me for your sister-in-law's death? She poked my forehead with disdain, her tone full of provocation. Anger was boiling in my heart, and my voice was no longer gentle. You are a devil, and you will get your retribution sooner or later. Every word was filled with my deep anger and unwillingness. Her reaction was unexpected, and she laughed even more wildly. Silly, I arranged your medicine and the man in your room. So have you thought it through? She approached me sarcastically. This time, I had no illusions. All her evil deeds were exposed in her mouth, and all the truth was revealed one by one. She approached step by step, and the fear and anger in my heart were intertwined. At this moment, her brother suddenly rushed in from the door. Maria screamed and fell straight down from the third floor as if she had lost all her strength. I stood upstairs and watched her fall. My mind went blank. Her body hit the ground hard, and soon she was motionless. My brother ran over in panic. His nervous expression made me feel that everything seemed strange. In order to frame me, she was willing to risk her own life. She had planned all this carefully. My brother was stunned for a moment when he saw me standing there, staring at me intently. Maria's sacrifice seemed tragic, but it also revealed her inner hypocrisy and conspiracy, and I saw through the truth of it all. In the hospital, Maria hugged her brother, tears in her eyes, and her tone was pitiful. Brother, I know I did something wrong. I owe you everything in the past. Now, I am in so much pain. Maybe this is retribution. She cried and looked up at her brother. My brother hugged her tightly and looked at her distressfully, seeming to completely ignore me, standing by. Maria, don't be like this. My brother has already forgiven you. Don't blame yourself anymore. I stood aside, feeling a mixture of emotions. I felt sick watching this scene. My patience had reached its limit, and my brother's words made it impossible for me to remain calm. He looked at me, as if he wanted me to explain, but then he said something that chilled my heart. Do you know how wrong you are? Your sister-in-law is dead, and even your child is gone. Why can't you be a little soft-hearted? Are you so cruel? I didn't explain anything further. My heart was filled with disappointment and powerlessness. I didn't say a word. I just turned around and left the hospital. When I left, I didn't go home, but to the outskirts of the city. That's where my mother and I used to live together. We used to live there simply and happily. Before my mother remarried, We lived there, and she ran a bakery. Although our life was poor, my mother and I were still satisfied. As I walked, I came to the place where the bakery used to be, but I didn't expect it to be replaced by a milk tea shop. This change shocked me. I couldn't help but ask, "Boss, wasn't this a bakery before? Why has it changed?" The boss replied nonchalantly, "Oh, I've been here for a few years. 5 years ago, there was a traffic accident here. Two girls bought bread and then got into a car accident and fell into the river. One of them died. The boss sold the shop to me not long after." My mind was like being struck by lightning, and I instantly recalled the car accident. Could those two girls be Maria and my sister-in-law? I was surprised and excited, so I immediately contacted my previous boss, but unfortunately he had passed away. Then I asked around, but still couldn't find any breakthrough. Until one day, an aunt told me that she had seen the woman in the photo and mentioned that she had an argument with a man named David in a car. The photo in my hand was a photo of Maria and her sister-in-law. "David? Where is he now?" I asked anxiously. Annie shook her head. "He hasn't lived here for a long time. I heard he became rich and moved to a big house in the city." After unremitting efforts, I finally found David. His life has changed dramatically, from an ordinary person to the owner of luxury cars and big villas. I told him about the accident, but he denied knowing Maria. However, when I mentioned money, his eyes faltered. I took my brother's gold watch and some cash and finally got the truth from David. After the car accident, the car caught fire and the dash cam was lost, until David accidentally found the dash cam by the river. The recorder reveals all the truth, including the real culprit. It turns out that Maria always thought she could escape responsibility, but her crime has been recorded. I was ready to go back and tell my brother the truth, but I didn't expect that as soon as I got out of the taxi, I was hit by an out-of-control car. The owner of the car didn't stop at all and drove away quickly. I lay in a pool of blood, tears streaming down my cheeks, my heart filled with pain. I was afraid that I was going to die, but the only thought in my mind was, will my brother be sad? Will he cry for me? Maybe, most likely not. At this moment, I was helpless like a child, carrying a heavy school bag, desperately trying to catch up with my brother. I shouted his name, "Brother, wait for me." However, my brother did not turn back and continued walking. I shouted again, "Brother, don't leave me." He stopped and looked around, but did not see me, because I became so small, almost like a speck of dust. Suddenly, he spoke, "Silly girl, why would your brother abandon you?" Then, it started to rain heavily. The sky began to pour down heavy rain, and my consciousness gradually became blurred. The kind people around me began to call me and ask me to hold on, but their voices gradually faded away. My world fell into deep darkness. Chapter 9. I couldn't tell if I was dreaming or had crossed into another world. Everything in front of me made me feel extremely strange and confused. I saw myself with tubes all over my body, and my brother sitting next to me had a face full of worry and fatigue and looked haggard. The doctor's voice came from the side. "Although the patient has temporarily passed the critical period, the situation is still not optimistic. The chance of not waking up is very high." My brother's face suddenly darkened, and he whispered, "How is it possible? She is so young. Why can't she wake up?" The doctor was silent for a moment. His voice was flat, but with a hint of helplessness. "The patient's multiple fractures have already caused comminuted injuries. It's a miracle that he survived." Upon hearing this, my brother's expression completely collapsed. It seemed that he even had difficulty believing what he heard. "No, it's impossible. I don't believe it." My brother almost shouted this sentence. He was so emotional, as if even the world could not bear his loss. At this time, Maria came over, her tone full of care and comfort. "Brother, don't be sad. All of this is my own choice. Don't blame yourself too much." Her voice was low, but with a kind of false comfort. Her words made me feel disgusted. Although I realized that the suicide she mentioned was actually a carefully forged suicide note. Everything was clear. The truck that hit me was not out of control, but a conspiracy she had designed. Maria wanted to get rid of me completely, even at the cost of everything. The brother was stunned for a moment. The pain on his face did not completely disappear, but he tried his best to calm himself. "Brother, she pushed me down the stairs. Why didn't you stand by me? Why didn't you understand me?" Her words were full of accusations and anger, but her brother's reaction was much calmer than she expected. However, her brother's response was more like a scrutiny. "You really didn't frame her? You jumped by yourself, didn't you?" His eyes were full of doubt, and Maria's face turned pale in an instant. "Brother, How could you think of me like that? Look at me now, she explained in a panic, with panic flashing in her eyes, and tried to defend herself with fierce words. The brother was silent for a moment before he told the driver to take her home. After Maria left, the brother sat by the bed for a long time without moving, seemingly in deep thought. At this time, my brother picked up the phone and called his assistant. Bring me the surveillance footage from June 22nd. The calmness in his voice revealed a sense of uneasiness. I saw him sitting silently, with unspeakable pain on his face. The assistant gently advised, President Ethan, you haven't eaten for several days. Go and have a rest. I will take care of you, Mississippi. But my brother did not move. He did not go to eat, let alone rest, but walked into the utility room where I used to live. The atmosphere in the utility room was as quiet as ever. There wasn't much in the space except for a thin quilt and a few old clothes. And the ragdoll cat, an old item that had accompanied me for many years, lay there quietly. The ragdoll cat was given to me by my brother to comfort me after my parents passed away when I was 8 years old. At that time, the family business was in trouble and my brother was penniless, but he still accompanied me and took me to donate blood in exchange for the ragdoll cat as a gift. I remember that I was as happy as a little child at that time, holding it and spinning around. Brother, you are so awesome, I said happily, laughing like a carefree child. Of course, even if I can't pick the stars in the sky, I will pick the brightest ones for you, my brother said with a smile. But at that time, he didn't know that this ragdoll cat would become the only comfort to my soul. My brother looked at the ragdoll cat with a dazed look in his eyes. Although Maria had called him many times, he did not respond. My brother just sat there, sometimes sobbing softly, sometimes showing a painful smile. Time seemed to freeze at that moment, until the assistant called. President Ethan, the surveillance has found it. My brother took the video and saw the clear surveillance footage. His face turned pale, and he almost collapsed. Impossible. His voice was hoarse, and his eyes were filled with unbelievable confusion. The video clearly shows that Maria accidentally fell from the upstairs. Her brother sat down on the ground helplessly, as if his whole body had lost all support. His eyes were empty, and he didn't know how to face this sudden truth. My brother's expression was filled with deep pain and confusion. He sat on the ground, unable to accept the truth before his eyes. There's one more thing. Please help me check it. His words were filled with endless helplessness and pain. He began to become depressed, stopped going to work, and even didn't change his clothes for several days. He seemed to be thrown into a deep quagmire. Just in that utility room, holding the ragdoll cat, he fell into endless memories and self-blame. Finally, one day, he found a diary in the ragdoll cat's belly. With trembling hands, the brother opened the diary and saw the words inside. He could no longer control his tears. Brother, I'm so scared. I want to go home. There is endless work to do here every day. The manager beat me again, but I just choked on my food. Every page was my signal for help. The words were full of dependence and longing for my brother. Brother, I have so many scars on my body. What should I do? They are so ugly. Will I die? I am going to receive a customer today. Brother, tell me, if I die, will I no longer have to suffer? Her words were filled with pain and helplessness as always. Brother, I really didn't call my sister-in-law. Why don't you believe me? Brother, please, come pick me up, okay? Every line of words made me feel extremely sad, until the last paragraph. The handwriting was almost blurred by tears. Brother, I will no longer like you in the future. Although it is difficult, I will change. Give me one last chance, okay? The brother looked at the diary, his eyes blurred with tears, and he lowered his head in pain. I am a beast. I am so sorry to Jessica. I am a beast, he cried and almost collapsed. He put down the diary, stood up, and ran to the hospital. On the way, he received a call from his assistant. President Ethan, we found out that the lady met a man named David that day, but he has lost contact now. Go find him quickly. This is definitely not a simple car accident. I have a hunch that there's a bigger conspiracy behind this. My brother's voice was hurried and firm. He finally realized that everything was not as simple as he imagined. When my brother arrived at the hospital and was about to rush into the ward, someone suddenly grabbed his wrist and said, "Help! Help me!" It was David. His face was filled with fear and his eyes were in panic. Maria, that woman, is trying to kill me. It turned out that Maria was furious when she learned that I had obtained the evidence. In order to cover up the truth, she hired a murderer to hit me and then put David in a mental hospital. However, David managed to escape. Hearing this, a trace of anger and regret flashed in my brother's eyes. He instantly realized the truth. He finally knew everything. My brother's body began to tremble, as if he had aged 10 years in an instant, and the light in his eyes disappeared instantly, completely dimming. I looked at my brother, and his eyes were full of regret, as if he realized all the mistakes and missed opportunities, and finally understood that it was too late. Chapter 10. He walked towards the bed, his steps weak but hurried. Seeing that I was full of tubes, his face turned pale instantly, his eyes were filled with fear and pain, and then he collapsed, tears pouring out. At that moment, he seemed to have lost all his strength, and there was unbearable pain in his eyes. "Please, save my sister." He grabbed the doctor's collar, his voice choked with sobs. "She must be in pain. She must be saved." The doctor took a deep breath and replied solemnly, "President Ethan, we have tried our best. Whether she can wake up depends entirely on her luck." Hearing this, President Ethan, his hands fell down helplessly, as if all his strength had been drained away. He raised his head, and at that moment, he was like a child who had been punished, begging, "Doctor, please, I really don't want to lose her." Seeing that he was about to kneel down, the doctor quickly supported him. "President Ethan, calm down. We will do our best." At this moment, Maria rushed in. She squatted down, hugged her brother tightly, and sobbed softly. "I hurt her brother. I deserve to die. I shouldn't let her go through all this." There was a flash of anger in his brother's eyes. He pushed her away and shouted, "Shut up. You don't understand the truth of the matter at all." When he pushed her away, his eyes flashed with a kind of coldness, a kind of indifference and ruthlessness that Maria had never seen before. He gritted his teeth and roared, "You wrote your own suicide note and crashed your car to commit suicide. Why do you want to involve me in you? This has nothing to do with us." Maria was stunned, her eyes full of disbelief and astonishment. "Brother, why did you hit me?" "Shut up. How dare you say that?" The brother's anger was about to explode. He grabbed her shoulders and pushed her hard into the corner. "Do you know what you have done? You have been pretending to be so innocent, but you have done so many shameful things behind the scenes." "Brother, what are you talking about? I don't understand." Maria's eyes were full of confusion, and she was eagerly seeking an answer. "Don't understand? Didn't David tell you?" Her brother's voice became colder and colder, his eyes full of murderous intent, and he almost made her breathless. "You did all this. Tina's car accident, Jessica's car accident, and even your fall from the building, it was all you behind it. You caused me to misunderstand Jessica for so many years. You are such a cruel woman. You dare to stand in front of me after doing such evil things." Maria's face gradually turned pale, and her throat was almost strangled. She tried to break free with her weak strength, but she knew she had no strength to resist. "Let me go. It's not me." Her voice became weaker and weaker, and her breathing became rapid. "You still don't admit it? Do you think I can't see it?" The brother's voice became cold and filled with deep hatred. "David has told me everything. All the evidence points to you. You murderer. You still dare to quibble. You deserve to die. Go to hell." The brother was furious and almost completely lost his mind. At this moment, the nurse's urgent voice came from the emergency room. "Oh no, Jessica has lost her heartbeat." When my brother heard this, he instantly lost all hope, turned around, and hurried to the emergency room. Although the doctors tried their best to save me, in the end, I could not escape the fate of death. "Mom, I can finally see you." I sighed secretly in my heart. Everything in front of me gradually became blurred, and my consciousness slowly dissipated. My brother changed completely after my death. He was no longer the elegant President Ethan in a suit, but a man in deep pain. He was an alcoholic, unshaven, and looked like a ghost who had lost hope. His hair, which he had carefully groomed, was now in disarray. He also made a mess of his home, stopped cleaning it, and locked himself in his room every day. He stood in front of my photo and talked to himself, his tone full of loneliness and sadness. "Jessica, you hid yourself, didn't you? It doesn't matter. I will wait for you to come back, and I will always protect you. Jessica, don't be too playful, otherwise your brother will really be angry." He forced a smile, but the emptiness in his eyes was heartbreaking. "I'm just kidding. How could I be angry? You know what? I made a lot of your favorite food at home, waiting for you to come back." "Jessica, are you really that cruel? You never come to see your brother in your dreams once." It is rumored that President Ethan completely collapsed because of his sister's death. 2 months later, my brother finally walked out of the dark abyss, regained his former charm. put on his neat suit again, and looked bright and handsome. He called Maria on purpose. She had moved out because of the last conflict, and her voice trembled when she received the call from her brother. She thought her brother would definitely settle the score with her, but she didn't expect a gentle voice to come from the other end of the phone. Maria, I think it's clear now. Maybe this is Xiaojia's fate. The living have to keep going, right? Brother misses you. Come home and have dinner with me this afternoon. I will make your favorite braised hairtail fish. These words seemed to finally find an outlet for his silence and pain for many days. Chapter 11. Maria finally breathed a sigh of relief and returned home in the afternoon, as if all her fatigue was released at this moment. As soon as she entered the door, she couldn't help but rush to her brother. Tears welled up in an instant, and the long-suppressed emotions completely collapsed at this moment. Don't cry. The brother gently wiped the tears from her face and comforted her softly. Come and eat. Brother has made your favorite meal for you. Maria sat down. She couldn't help eating with big mouthfuls, her face full of long-lost relaxation. The long-lost warmth of home seemed to make her forget all her anxieties for a while. Brother, why don't you eat? She looked at him puzzledly, with a hint of helplessness in her eyes. Brother is not hungry, you eat. The brother smiled slightly, but there was a hint of coldness in his eyes, as if hiding an unspeakable secret. Maria continued to eat, and slowly, her mood gradually recovered and she relaxed. However, the next sentence made her heart instantly cold. The meal you just ate was filled with deadly poison. You will die soon. Her brother's words were like a sharp knife stabbing into her heart. Maria's face turned pale instantly. She was so shocked that she threw the cutlery to the ground, her eyes filled with fear and disbelief. Brother, why? Why did you do this? Her voice trembled, as if she couldn't understand what was happening before her eyes. You killed Jessica. Anger burned in his brother's eyes. You did so many bad things to her, the abortion pills, the man in the closet. You did it all, right? Maria stood there in shock, staring at her brother. She finally realized that her brother already knew the truth. So you don't. Before she could finish her words, her brother grabbed her hair and pressed her down on the dining table. Why do you want to kill her? What did she do wrong? And Tina, why did you threaten her not to marry me? Her brother's voice was cold, as if it came from hell, which made Maria tremble all over. The anger in his eyes seemed to be able to devour her at any time. Why? Tell me, he asked again. Maria felt an extreme fear. Her whole body trembled. Tears flowed unconsciously. She desperately grasped the soup bowl next to her and smashed it on her brother's head. Taking advantage of his momentary shock, she struggled to break free. She was out of control and cried. Are they the only two people in your eyes? Do you know that I am your biological sister? Have you ever really cared about me? Do you know how jealous I am of Jessica? I have always been jealous of her and how good you are to her. Her voice was almost hoarse, and tears poured out like a dam breaking. All this is because of you. You forced me to be like this today. The deaths of Jessica and Tina are all because of you. She paused, her eyes filled with despair. If you could give me a little bit of the kindness you showed them, things might not have turned out like this. Maria raised her head. Her eyes were empty, and her voice was hoarse. You feel sorry for Jessica who lost her mother, but I also lost my father. You took them out to play, but never cared about me. They are sensitive and fragile. And am I just a stone? I'm also a little girl. My brother's body was stiff in place, unable to make a sound for a long time. His eyes were full of shock and confusion, as if he had experienced an unbelievable change. Ethan, do you know how much I envy them? They are not related by blood, and they can love you and depend on you to their heart's content. But her voice trembled, and her eyes flashed with unprecedented pain. But I can't, because I'm just a rat hiding in the gutter, sneaking up on you. Do you know how hard I have worked these years? Do you know how much I love you? You never knew. Every word she said was like a knife piercing her brother's heart, making it impossible for him to breathe. At this moment, the brother's expression was completely dull, and he spoke hoarsely. I am your brother. We are family. Relatives? Maria's eyes flashed with despair. I don't want to be your relative. I don't want to be your sister. I just want to be your woman. Her eyes were filled with pain and struggle, and her voice was like a flood that broke through a dam. I love you so much, but you want me to die. Well, since you wish so, I will die. There was deep despair in her voice, and her eyes were empty. You already know it anyway, so there is no point in me living. The brother was stunned, his eyes filled with regret and remorse. He rushed towards her and tried to take the medicine out of her mouth. I'm sorry, brother really doesn't know. I'm the one who deserves to die the most. I'm sorry to every one of you. He whispered weakly, his eyes full of pain. However, Maria bit her lips tightly, and the drug was never removed. She gradually lost consciousness. Her face became paler, and her breathing became weaker. Her brother still held her tightly, tears streaming down her face like a spring. After a long silence, he walked into the kitchen, closed the window, turned on the gas, turned it to the maximum, and then extinguished the flame with water. He slowly walked back to the sofa and sat down quietly, his eyes empty, as if his soul had left her. Soon after, the whole room was filled with a strong smell of gas. Suddenly, with a loud bang, flames shot out and the whole house was instantly engulfed in flames.